folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. And last week, I had a bit of a cathartic experience in the live musical context, being able to witness Tony Leone and Scott Sherrard playing music with Little Feat, very healing music. And as a result, I also have friends back on the East Coast who check out a lot of heady music, and a lot of them are completely obsessed with my next guest, who seems to just be in all these funky and angular settings, soul jazz or R&B, also just really tasty, a good taste in music, and an accomplished producer. As we know, the life of an artist and a musician can be tedious, but they are as important as medical doctors in this present era that we are in right now. Craig Dreyer, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Right on. That was a very, very kind introduction.
Well, I think I just really wanted to know. I wanted to start with the idea of, it takes a certain point. It takes a certain sort of headiness to be able to play Wilton Felder with the Crusaders or Lou Donald. Like, when did your musical point of view start to come into focus in your career?
Oh my God. I mean, I don't know. I'm just always trying to do the best I can, and just, but I gotta say, I feel like music, it's, the more you play, I just feel like I get better as I get older. I feel like I know more. So coming into focus, it's always coming into focus. There's always more to do. There's always more to practice. So, you know what I mean? Like, that's a question I can't answer because it's, until I'm Wilton Felder.
It's the forever.
I'm out of focus.
Yeah. No, it's the, it's the forever journey, man. I dig, But I guess here maybe the better question is, how did you? I'd like you to just talk to younger cats about how you cultivated your own individual sound on your horn.
Well, that's funny. That I can tell you because my vibe. See, I didn't go to music school, so I didn't there was no, and we just grew up playing bars in New York City, so we didn't really have. I had only a couple of lessons, and so there was no one telling me, play in this style or transcribe the solo and try to be like this, I was basically, my brothers were guitar players and played really fucking loud. But when we were in our early 20s, the management bought us a couple of JCM 900s, Marshalls, Yeah. And so basically I was trying to play saxophone like an electric guitar as loud as I could. I got a Duke-off mouthpiece with a high baffle in it. It's called a super power chamber. It used to be called Duke-off died, and that they're out of existence. They were very soft. They bent really easily. Made of this stuff called silverite, which is actually pewter, and it's really cheap. You could literally, I would bite through them. I'd go through them all the time. But they have this high baffle, which means it can give you this high, edgy, piercing thing. When I was young, I played a smaller bore with a stiffer reed, so I was playing really hard to get this really edgy thing. So I was trying to sound like, just competing with electric guitars. You know what I mean?
This was you'd say this was, were there dynamics in the music, or was it just level 10 all the way?
I would play different stuff too. I'm just saying that was when you're playing in bars with shitty PAs, or, you're playing with really loud guitars, it's like Junior Walker figured out another solution for it, which is he found this incredible altissimo, right? He's playing back in the day of no PAs, right? You're playing in a room with drums, early amplified basses and guitars, a Hammond organ, and the PAs suck, right? Or maybe there's a PA
so bad, monitor, bad, yeah.
Right? There's no monitor. You can't hear yourself. So his solution is to come up with these incredible high notes that would just, cut through anything. So I was trying to be like, also I like Bobby Keys for a rock sound. So that kind of edgy sound was, and I, so I was just, but on the other hand, this is all as if I was conscious of any of this shit. You just do it. You know what I mean?
I did. No, we're talking about the esoteric, totally.
Well, you can look back on it now, you know, when you're not high as fucking shit growing up, you know, shooting dope on the Lower East Side like a maniac, and then try to look back on what you know, did, you know, when you're clean 30 years and looking back at it, you know what I mean?
Totally, man.
So it's like, but yeah, that would be it if I look back on. So it's like trying to, and then, you know, and we also didn't believe in tribute bands when in my scene in New York in the 80s, you know, we didn't, like, we thought sounding like somebody else was the absolute no-no. Like, that's what you didn't do. You tried as hard as you could to be what would sound like yourself.
I love that. I love that. I love that attitude, man.
That was our attitude. We thought, you know, cover bands were square. You know, we thought that was jive. You know,
right.
So yeah, it was like corny. Like, you know, what, you do that? Like, what's wrong?
Can I ask you? I want to.
Not that I feel that way now, so don't hate me.
No. Dude, you don't need to preface anything. I guess what I'm saying is, was there, not only were you trying to create original music and stay away from the cover stuff, could you sing for your supper playing original music live?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was definitely easier.
It was easier. I mean, yeah, than now.
Yeah, So I had like original rock bands with my brothers. Then what happened is I fell into the scene. There was a band in New York called Joey Miserable and the Worms, and I don't know if you ever heard of these guys.
That's awesome.
But they were kind of Lower East Side legends,
wow.
You know. And then I get a call from the bass player, because I met the bass player Jerry Duggar playing with Joan Osborne, playing on Bleecker Street, right? And so then he calls me to play with this band called the Mighty Sweet Tones, or some of the spin-off of this band, Joey Miserable and the Worms, right? So anyway, we started playing all these blues clubs, but we had original tunes. And so we were playing this bar called Dan Lynch, Mondo Connie and Mondo Perso on Bleecker Street, and we were working 4 or 5 nights a week, and we played bluesy stuff, but we had originals, and we were making a living.
Wow.
We would play 20 nights a month, and I also played with a guy. And yeah, and it's a whole long whatever. There's a bunch
what
I'm
saying.
One of the bands.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
As long as we were bluesy, right? We could play these blues clubs,
right.
And they had guarantees. And if you were good, and we were, and you could keep the people in there, then you got the gig. If you sucked, you just couldn't. They wouldn't pay. You wouldn't be in the loop. So it was different then. It was still before they turned it into this thing where it's like you have 5 bands a night, and how many people do you bring? It doesn't matter if you're good or bad, right?
Exactly.
But back then, it was the club advertised. The club paid for advertising. They paid the band. Your job was to be good. The club would have a style of music. Your job was to be good and keep the people that they brought in there, and rock it. And we were at the tail end of that, late 80s, early 90s. Was still like that, so you could just play original tunes around town, and you like there
were many bands doing that.
Yeah. There were, and then there was a jam band scene emerging in New York that was becoming big, because that was the time we were playing. Like if you look on the special thanks to the first Blues Traveler and Spin Doctors records, there's thanks to the Mighty Sweet Tones. You know, those guys who sort of watched us, checked us out, and then we were all friends with them. I even did some gigs in the horn section of the Spin Doctors, believe it or not.
Wow.
For a couple of gigs, there was a horn section. Yeah, me and a trombone player, you know. So like for 2 nights, I was a spin doctor. You know what I mean? But so there were some bands coming out, and then Wetlands, this club happened, and there were a lot of jam bands came out of that. I mean, you know, there's pictures of that era where it was like Dave Matthews playing at Wetlands with fucking 15 people. You know.
What year? What year is that? What year is that approximately?
Like 90.
Yeah. So totally under the radar.
Right, but there were gigs for, you know, there were clubs that you could get a guarantee and just play in your, you know, you maybe throw a few covers, or you're in the style of. So we were fortunate that we caught the tail end of that. I don't know.
Well, I also, and to dovetail with Craig Dreyer here, I mean, you also, were you you were also at the tail end of being a studio shark? Did you find your way into the studios?
Yeah, sure, yeah. Definitely, there were sessions.
So you were making bread that way. You could really go out. Yeah. You know, you didn't even had to get paid a lot at the Bleecker Street stuff, because you were making dough in the studio. So that.
Well, at that point, I was, you know, man, like we play this place called Dan Lynch, and this one band I'm talking about, and we used to make $250, $300 a man each on a Saturday night.
That is unreal, man.
My rent was $450. I mean, the problem was, if you left the club with all of it, because there was this cat named Shot who sat at the end of the bar. He looked like Isaac Hayes, and he had a tendency to take all your money.
Are you kidding me,
or you
dude?
give him all your money. But more interesting about that, what's interesting about that time and that club in particular was really cool. Was a thing I like to mention about the time in New York was that. Our band was half black and half white, and the crowd was half black and half white. We were playing blues. That ended. After by the mid '90s, the black people coming to see blues in New York didn't seem to be
fascinating. Because you nailed it, dude. Because you could go to a festival.
It's like that. Yeah. The blues became this white people sort of took over it in a lot of ways, and became the people in it, and. It changed. It was a really cool scene because for me, for a white kid from the Upper East Side, to be in the scene, and I have to mention this guy. His name was Bill Sims too. He was a guy I met around the time. Later became a really big figure to a lot of us. And Scott and Tony will tell you for sure. In the New York scene, there was this guy Bill Sims. He was really the best of the blues in New York for many years. He passed away about 3 or 4 years ago now, and he became he's for a lot of the younger kids, to me, he was like my older brother. He's definitely about 18 years older than me, 20 years older than me. But I was he was young when I met him. It was to every people in the later years, he was like their old uncle or something, but I know him 30 fucking years, and we hung out back in the day.
I did. So he was a musician. He was a cat, or he promoted the blues.
He was a great guitar player and singer.
Wow.
They made a film about him and his wife, and he was on PBS, so they made some fusses have been made about him earlier, and then later he had a band with his daughter and. This other singer, guitar player, Junior Mack, called the Heritage Blues Orchestra, which did well, and they toured in Europe, and he got some more his due in the end of his life. But there was just a whole scene, a whole culture, and also do you ever remember the Holmes brothers? They used to play with Popsy Dixon.
Absolutely, sure.
My first blues gig, I sit in with this cat named Moose Bollet at a place called the Chameleon. This is I want to say 1990 or 89.
In New York?
No, earlier, 88. 80. Yeah, 88. And the guy, Moose is like, all right, motherfucker, you're on the gig every fucking Tuesday night at midnight. We start at midnight.
Whoa.
All right? And so I show up the next week, right? I show up, and it's fucking at midnight. I'm 20 years old, right? And these cats are about, 40. Wow. And they look like old as shit to me, right, at 20. Now I'm
definitely.
54, right? But then it's Bill Sims, this guitar player I'm telling you about, Eller Moose Bollet on bass. He played for Lou Reed and Greg Allman. He's a great blues man. He's still active, he lives in Florida now. And the drummer was Popsy Dixon from the Holmes brothers, and me. And that was a fucking eye-opening experience, you know what I mean? And we're lucky that we had that, because that doesn't, there's not so much of that in New York, anymore. There is still some great guys. Ron Crenshaw's a bona fide, great, real blues man in my eyes. Junior Mack is great too. But there's not as many clubs where certainly not as many black singers, guitar players leading these bands, like in New York. In other places, sure. But
what's fascinating is to me, I was just going to go back really quickly to this idea of the original blues masters, the Howlin' Wolves, the Beat. There was not really a next generation. I'm trying to figure out why the black audience disappeared, whether it was premeditated and a business move, because basically you can go to a blues festival now, there's not one black band on the bill.
Well, they're trying to rectify it, because I toured a couple of weeks with Papa Chubby last March, and we did Bonamassa Blues Cruise.
Right.
And yes, I think you get a sense that there's an awareness that there needs to be, but I think you have you have a couple of factors. At least I can't speak to I'm not sure what I would say about in the 60s, but maybe it's the same kind of thing. But I do feel like what it is I would guess, and I can't speak for people, what black people do.
Absolutely. No, just you.
But what I would get a sense is that people want to be rappers and they want to be R&B singers because that's where the shit is. And the best talents wants to go where they can express themselves and be current and have hits and make money. And sometimes blues is just kind of like this old ass thing, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, I mean,
you know, why would I want to go play that old shit? I want to play this new shit that's made with machines, and you do this. You go into the studio and you make beats, and that's what's happening. So, you know, why would you go? But then, so you know,
I mean, it also speaks to this sort of the obsession with vocalese as opposed to like, is it really vogue to even be improvisation, like good improvisationally at an instrument? I mean, to me, to me, no matter what, I think the other issue for me, I don't hear enough grease in the blues, man. It's got to be greasy, like you know what I'm saying, like it's gotten a little too classicalized, a little too you know, and I'm just saying, like, all I care about is grease, man. That's it.
You know what's funny? For me?
Yeah.
For me, it's like it's the singing. Like for me, it's the singing and the subtlety
right.
and the singing, and also like, man, dig this band. The Bill's last band that we were playing with in New York. I mean, I thought we were really crushing. We never made a record. We should have. We tried to, but Bill was weird in the studio. We should have made a live record. But we had Charlie Drayton on drums,
wow.
Andy Hess on bass.
Are you kidding me?
Fucking George
Hess
Lax.
is a freak of nature, man.
Yeah, George Lax on keyboards, or Brian Mitchell. Me, and then Al Street on guitar. That was the fucking band.
That's not a blues. That's a fusion band.
No, but we were playing blues.
Right.
But there was subtlety. There's quiet. Sometimes when I'm listening to the blues, it's like they found this one area of muscly Chicago blues, and it's very like, for lack of a better term, like it's kind of like hyper masculine, like wear your biker outfit blue, like it's all hollering, it's all yelling. The vocals are like I don't know.
You nailed it. No, you're nailing it
too. There's quiet sections. There's space. There's discipline. You know, instead of this, and then the other thing is it's all just guitar solos. I mean, guitar solo after guitar solo. You know, I mean, you know, not as many horn sections. So some of those factors, I think, is what I hear as opposed to what. I mean, you could define whatever you define grease as. What I hear is a lack of subtlety, lots of loud.
I'm just, you know, what I want to see is cats getting up there, you know, hitting clams, but yet everybody goes in that direction. So there are no wrong notes. You're not going up there. It's not a formula. It's not a formula trip. It's like a Freddie Robinson kind of thing. These kinds of freaking insane. I mean, the way even Wes Montgomery, Joe Sample went to his house and he was writing this new tune, and Joe's like, so what chord is that? And Wes is like, I have no idea. And he's like, you mean? He's like, you don't know the chords that you're playing? He's like, and you know, I know it's not, but I'm just saying the education came from when you showed up and played with guys twice your age, and that education now is in the academy, and I don't think blues, vocabulary, or jazz can grow in the academy. So that's the crisis to me.
Well, then you might have a point there. Yeah.
But I think you nailed it with the hyper masculine. They get into one little niche of the blues is like a dynamic music.
Well, you know, I mean, to me, fucking blues is Louis Jordan too. You know what I mean?
That's right.
To me, blues is fucking Gene Ammons as well.
Totally, dude.
Jug. Illinois Jughead.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's horn players in blues. You know, and one of the sad things about New York, and I will fucking name names, is that motherfucker at fucking Terra Blues, God bless him, but he doesn't like fucking. When we were playing at Terra Blues, when the club started, you had saxophone. He actually ruled out saxophone at his club.
Wanker, man. Wanker, dude.
I did 2 years with Clarence Beatty there, right? And I couldn't take my horn out of my case. I just play keys, right? Play organ. And then when my horn would be in this dressing room, when the owner would split, then Clarence would be like, hey, man, go get your horn. And then I take my horn. And then I play a couple tunes at the end of the night. Well, word got back to him that I was doing that, and I got fired. But how about that? No saxophone allowed. That was his idea.
I just find that's just such a wankish idea, man. I don't dig that.
Right? Oh, I don't dig it either. Hey, I'm being a saxophone player, but still, come on, man. What do you mean? No, I mean,
I don't know. Yeah.
shows the thinking, right? It's like a certain kind of Chicago blues, and that gets like a code in people's minds that, okay, that's what blues is. Shuffles.
That's it, man. You're back on the track, dude. You're nailing this, dude. It's like program coding bullshit.
It's like, all right, and look, hey, there's some great people doing that stuff, and I don't want to take it away. I went on blues. I thought Bonamassa, his band was slick. They sounded fucking great. I mean, Chubby, he's been wailing this shit for fucking 30 years. He fucking, wails. There's a lot of these wailing rock blues guitars. Jimmy Vivino's out there on the scene. He's fucking great.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of these great guitar players doing this thing. I don't know. I guess I'd like to see some more.
Well, I mean, you know what it is? I just wonder, who do you feel, I mean, you mentioned Brother Sims, but do you feel like who was the best leader that you ever worked for, and what have you tried to take from that person into your own career as a
Bill is one.
Definitely,
but there's so many. Yeah, I mean, he's, but there's lots of guys like who are, really, what it is when people get the best out of their players, what I see is when there's a sense of trust and when you feel like you could take a solo for as long as you want. If you wanted to, you could take 10 choruses and you like playing with Sherrod. Sherrod never looks at me, and it's never like
as many bars as you want. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's tunes where it's obviously a set amount or whatever. But like on other things, there's always a sense of like it's as long as you want it to be, and he trusts you. And then like in jazz, it's nobody's saying unless you're making the record, but nobody's saying only do so many choruses. Nobody tells you that. You take as many as it makes sense. And so in blues and R&B, and like when someone trusts you like that, and then you feel like, because sometimes you might be a little tense, and then you might need a little time to settle in on something. You might need to start somewhere to get somewhere, and if you feel like a guy's like waiting for you to be done, then you can't really ever get loose and really play your best, and that can create a tension. I mean, I think there's few people, like, when I think about, when you hear stories about guys like James Brown, right, where they were tough on guys, right?
Definitely.
The guys, you have to be a real big star to be tough, where guys are going to respond and be great under those circumstances. I think the culture has changed away from that. I don't think people really respond to that kind of stuff.
I agree with you. I mean, listen, there were many times where James Brown found himself without a band because they quit on him. So they didn't always take his shit.
Right.
Yeah. So he carried two drummers for a while, but he didn't have two drummers on stage, but in case one of them walked off the gig. But I'm with you. You see that in sports as well, but I just feel like it's hard. I'm old and I've been around. I can handle it if some guys fucking want to browbeat a little bit. I'm not, Sure.
but I don't like it. I think I play my best when people are, and then you can tell when somebody like, band leaders taking it. Like he takes a hit to make sure his cats gets paid, and like when you know a guy does that for you a couple times, then you want to play for that guy.
I love it.
You know what I mean?
I love that.
And there's a lot of people, and then there's people who don't do that, and I won't name names.
Can you talk about somebody like early when you were still kind of wet behind the ears who like
like Warren Haynes? Like I played Warren Haynes' band gigs before Government Mule. Warren's really fucking what a nice guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean there's an example of a great dude, the pleasure. He calls and you fucking, you're like, where do I go? I'll go anywhere you want. Let's rock. You don't ask any questions because it's going to be cool. The gig's going to be great, and he's going to be great. And he'll be, that's an example I could think of.
This is something I wanted to talk to you about. Not that you were even alive during this time, but I wanted to get. There were remnants of it when you were still woodshedding and coming up, and so the long and the short of it is, a lot of the guys that played on the accompanists that played on Blue Note Records in the mid '60s, guys like Joe Chambers, some people like Bobby Hutcherson and those cats. I mean, not so much Bobby, but a lot of the other guys they were competing with guys for gigs like Archie Shepp and Albert Ayler. And in their mind, those guys were just squeaking and squawking. They couldn't play changes. They couldn't back up a singer. They couldn't hold down a gig at Radio City Music Hall. And yet, and these other musicians who were playing this sort of sophisticated post-bop where you could hear the tradition, they were playing changes, they were adding some new vocabulary to it. I just, like, to me, like, is there validity in the squeaking and squawking? Where do you come down on that? I know you played in early with your brothers in, like, high-octane rock bands, but...
in terms of playing out?
Yeah, being, because basically, like, my generation, I mean, 43, the younger cats, they definitely look at guys like Eiler and Shep, that they are the free jazz heroes, but in some ways, the cats that really had the vernacular... but
all those guys could probably play bop.
I agree. I think you're right, man. I think definitely Shep could.
Yeah, I mean that's an old
canard. It's a canard, I guess.
Everybody kind of knows. Like the guys who played out really well actually could really play. Like Ornette could really play, and like Parker and stuff. A lot of these guys had more chops than. Certainly Pharoah Sanders did. You know what I mean?
It was a reaction. It was basically saying, "I don't want to try to be Charlie Parker. I know I'm gifted. I just want to go."
So the times change and the music changes.
Right.
I mean, it's like who want that's one of the things about. I'm just old enough to see, like, if you talk about jam bands in the '90s, we didn't call at Wetlands. Playing with Blues Traveler or Joan Osborne or like Aquarium Rescue Unit.
Oh, absolutely.
Or God, I played with God Street Wine.
Oh, are you kidding me? You do that? Oh my God!
So like say any of these bands, we weren't calling it jam bands yet, right?
Did that word even exist?
It was called classic rock.
I love it, dude.
So what you start to see
right.
backwards looking retro thing started around then because it wasn't happening that much before. So you start to see the culture looking backwards.
Dreyer, you're nailing this, man. Holy.
But look who's looking backwards. Well, it's like white middle class. Basically, rockers looking backwards. Okay, but then I played a gig later with Leo Nocentelli from the Meters.
I've interviewed.
He doesn't bring the exact guitar and fucking Fender amp that he played on the Meter shit. He's got some newfangled guitar and some new pedal because he wants to sound modern.
Right.
He wants to play something new. He's not like that's another kind of person who says, let's get a sound that's exactly like Leo did on the Meters records. Let's get the exact guitar and the exact amp. You know what I mean? Like that's a later thing that happens. Right. Henry Hirsch and Lenny do that kind of thing, but this is people later start doing that. I think. So that's my.
So talk how I mean. So the mob.
Pharoah and Albert Eidler, they're trying to be modern all the time. So already bop is already fucking 10, 15 years old. Right?
Oh, this is amazing. Yeah, this is such a...
It's old. Why are you playing that old shit, motherfucker? I want to play this. Why are you playing that old fucking, country-ass blues when I want to fucking sound like Kendrick Lamar? You know what I mean? I mean, that's what I see. But that's amongst certain people, and then there's some... Like, look, I mean, I still have retro... I was before we started, I was complaining about my tape machine having a little issue. I'm still trying to make records like... I still like making records like it's the 70s and 80s on tape, analog, everything, vintage mics. I mean, it's just like what I like and what I like the aesthetic of. And I'm still, people bring their new songs and still have that influence. I mean, there's jam band stuff that still does that. So there is a market for it and people still like it. And I try to do new versions of it like it's an old record. Like the record I'm making right now today is like a dude, his name is Joel Z. It's like a Randy Newman record or something, like half Randy Newman and half Donald Fagen or something. But it's all on tape, no computers, no auto-tune, no fucking editing on tape, nothing. It's all just like the record's made all analog. It's pre-1980.
Well, let me ask you: are you doing are you bringing in all sorts of different rhythm sections like Fagen did? Or is it like...
No, we kind of went with one rhythm section.
I mean, it was absurd what he was... I mean, hardly...
the guy doesn't have the budget to do that.
Right. What was a budget like when you were in... I mean, obviously not like Suds and Duds commercials, but like, can you talk about Like, I mean, because I mean, when I was interviewing Dave Bargeron from Blood, Sweat, and Tears, he's talking about, I mean, they'd rent out RCA for 2 weeks. There'd be tubs of cocaine. It's like, like they're.
Well, everything's different. Put it this way.
I know. I dig. Just for you, were there budgets in the studio for?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Like I remember playing I one that comes to mind. Like I played just on one track, but I was friends with the guitar player for a band called Spread Eagle.
Yeah.
They were like one of the last bands on MCA, hair band. They got a monstrous contract.
Wow, dude, MCA.
Like I remember
him
he punched the vocals in for months or something. They were working on the vocals, and I forget what I got, but I got I don't know. I probably got $1,000 or something in 1980, 9 or 90 or 89 or somewhere around that time, to go in and play one tenor solo.
That's unbelievable.
I remember, I know I'm the side man. I remember Al Cooper was on one track in there. He probably got a pot. You go in and you have a session like that, and it was on MCA, and they have, I forget where they did it, but I remember, you'll go into some big studio, and they were there. They have it rented out for weeks, and I just come in, hey man, why don't you play on this track? And it paid well. I mean, everything, relatively speaking, has gone down, and everything has gone down, relatively speaking. If you adjust for inflation. I mean,
absolutely. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absurd. Absurd,
I mean,
man.
You can come into my studio. It's embarrassing what my hourly rate is. It's less than what it was for a studio in the 80s, and not adjusted for inflation. It's less.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just crazy. So, but
can you just talk a little bit? I want you to just talk a little bit about how you stay in a forward-looking position. I think what you talked about, the nostalgic lean.
See, I don't.
How do you balance that? Like when you talk about putting a modern twist on stuff.
I just look for if I'm producing something, I have this sort of retro sensibility of way I like things, the gears, because I like how it sounds.
Absolutely.
Or more like how it feels. Like I like how tape feels.
Absolutely, man.
That's a whole long
No, I did, dude. All I listen to is my Roland sack with all my tapes, dude.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a whole thing with analog, and that's a whole maybe for an engineering kind of interview or whatever.
We can do a set too. No, that's important.
But then I'm always looking for people who are writing new songs that feel current, that represent, that feel fresh. Like I made a record which I'm really proud of. This singer Molly Ruth, and it's on Spotify. Just check it out. It's like new classic rock, and it's really good. Like we got Tony Mason's on drums, Jack Daly on bass, Al Street's on some of the guitar. I play keys and sax on, but she's she's like country rock, weird stuff all mixed in. But to me, she's a great singer, and she's new. And it's like,
I'll check it out.
If you like all that old classic rock, you put this on, it's going to have you're going to identify with it right away. But she's got a new weird twist to her. She's got this edge to her. I really like her. And check that record out. And that would illustrate better than me talking about it.
Absolutely.
But she's new. When she came in, it was really funny, man. I did an old school thing. She came in first singing. She was just like a solo acoustic vocal thing. I was like, man, you're really good. You should do a record. And she came in with her band, and about 2 tracks into the thing, I was like, oh fuck, we're in the control room. I just looked at her. I said, this ain't gonna work. She was like, what do you mean? I said, well, your band, we got to fire your band. She's like, what? Fire my band?
Oh man.
And I said, yeah, we're firing their whole band. And she was like, okay. She trusted me. And she was like, how do we do it? I said, well, I'm just going to tell her something broke. I'm going to tell everybody the tape machine broke. So I went over the talk back. Like, sorry guys, tape machine's down. Got to cancel. It's got to stop.
Yeah, we'll get back with you. Yeah.
Yeah. We just called Tony Mason and Jack Daly.
That's so great.
Sorry to those
man.
guys. They were just young guys. It was just I was like, oh no, let's bring in the ringers. She was really good. And we brought in some ringers, and we made the rest of it.
Man. That's so. I mean, I love the behind the scenes, and you know what? It was cathartic. The only way she was going to grow, she trusted you because she knew you knew what you were talking about.
Well, and also I have my team. I have these guys. You get like I have a team of guys. Like that. Like Scott likes to call it. Like this band that is New York. There's there's probably, whatever this 100 people are that sort of all kind of know each other. So there's 4 or 5 drummers that you can call for a given gig
Wow.
or session,
So cool.
And you have,
yeah.
it's really cool. And
It's
dudes
really,
are
although it
really
used to
good.
be more like 500 cats, not 100.
It may be. I mean, at least the crowds, like if you talk a crowd, like our crowd, I mean, there are 500 cats. I mean, there's five,
Yeah, I just love hearing that. You're right on the,
gang, like with Scott and Tony, like these, like that, those are part, like,
they're in the
like
top 100. Yeah, right. I did.
Yeah, there's a scene. There's like a blues rock jazz scene that is certain. Everyone kind of knows each other. There's still, it's still there.
That's good. That's good to hear. I mean, I think.
Yeah.
I think. Do you consider yourself somebody who, allows information? Like, do you feel like you are a conduit for the music, that really, when you can get out of your own way, that you can be a vessel, and what that feeling, outside of the studio. I mean, to me, like, there's only two letters that separate magic and music, and it's been very healing for me, kind of more in recent times in my life. And I just wanted to know if you were somebody who, really wants to get their shit down, or if you think like the R word, the rehearsal, is a dirty word.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think there's a couple of questions in there.
They're absolutely no. You riff any way you want. There's definitely
the thing is, I mean, look, man. I'm just trying to play the best I can. I just think all these guys that I loved were the geniuses. Like I do this Crusaders cover band, which is something like when we were kids, that would have been a dirty word. But now, like, who do you hear playing that music?
I love it, man. Dude, I want you to go even earlier in the 70s, Crusaders, dude.
Yeah, I mean, just fucking, if I could play one night with Wilton Felder, then I could die happy.
Dude, Wilton Felder, man,
unbelievable. That's just a saxophone, let alone his bass.
Oh, dude, no, I got to send you my interview with him. It's so touching, dude. It's unbelievable.
I mean, the dude's a fucking genius. Like,
unreal.
If I could play like that guy for 5 seconds, then we could talk about.
No, but I mean, dude, you're Craig Dreyer, dude. You're not Wilton Felder.
And if I could honor these people that I respect, you know what I mean? Like I could play one high note like Junior Walker.
Sure.
And then, but it's, to me, what I try to do is I try to play the best I can, entertain the people the best I can, but try to really honor and continue and see, instead of looking back as a retro, like we're trying to cover these guys, what we're trying to do is keep the tradition alive of these geniuses. And so that some of these, some people out there who haven't heard who the Crusaders were go, hey, shit, and they go check it out.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's amazing.
You got it.
And then, and back to my friend Bill. Wait, what is this? Now I'm having a brain freeze.
Bill Sims, he did. Sims.
Yeah, like you say, protect the blues or something. So like we try to play.
Don't forget about the blues, man. Yeah.
Yeah, try to keep it alive, and I play with a bluesy tone and my rock tone, whatever. Just try to honor the tradition of of the really important people. And that's where I see my role. If I can honor them in some way, and somebody listens to a Crusaders record as a result, hey, that's fucking, that's a win. And, those guys were all the giants, and who were we? That's the way I see it for me. Anyway,
how do you musically, though, in this time, how do you keep pushing yourself out of your comfort zone? I mean, you want to entertain. I'm fundamentally into this sort of belief that, like,
well, you just play with the best guys you can play with. I mean, go take a solo right after Scott Sherrard with one.
Yeah, no,
in the El Dorado Slim. Have you heard the El Dorado Slim?
Dude, my buddies were there. They lost their minds, dude. I mean, it's like the hottest band around, dude.
Rock guitar player, but if you ask me, it's the funky jazz shit that he's actually the best at.
Well, that my buddy who was a drummer, my buddy showed up there. He's a drummer. He said the exact same. The Grant Green stuff is just killing.
He's fucking blowing your mind on the Grant Green shit. He's so good at it. Then you take a solo after that. Or how about after fucking Pat Bianchi?
Yeah.
Who's one of the best.
I mean, these are Titanic modern day. You see, that's the thing. I mean,
see, I see that's what you do. You go hang with those guys, and then it's like, oh fuck. So that's, like, all right, I'll do the best I can. I've got to play after Bianchi plays. Bianchi plays so good sometimes that I've seen the whole band is watching the organ player.
Well,
my dear, we're all looking at the organ player because he's such a beast.
My dear friend, my dear late uncle, Pat Martino, man, Bianchi crushed it in that.
Oh, he's your uncle. Wow.
No. I mean, he's like my spirit. He was like one of my first interviews, and he was opened his heart to me for 11 years ago. And I mean, Bianchi and Carmen and Torre are, they were cooking with him, man. Like, so you look at Bianchi, he just takes it out, way out. People are just staring at him, I mean, it's a heavyweight group.
But you know what fucking Bianchi said to me, man?
Yeah. What?
I was like, Bianchi, dude. You're fucking a beast, And then he was like, man, I'm checking you guys out. Like the way you guys play pentatonic, just the way you guys keep it when you're in pentatonic blues stuff. He's like, I'm checking you guys out because Scott makes a joke. He's like, for Bianchi, it's his rock gig. For me and Scott, it's our jazz gig. Right?
It totally, dude.
So
I love that.
Like,
That's so cool.
Phrasing. Yeah. So he was like, I didn't expect him to say it. I didn't know what I expected him to say, but he's a beautiful and humble and amazing dude who's checking us out to say like, oh, what's your rock shit? The funk, you're playing funk and rock. Like, let me check out you guys because he sees himself. I guess he sees himself, more as a jazzer and all that. And I won't speak for him, but so he was, so. That's the thing. You just go with guys you think are great, and you're playing with these guys, and listen to them, and try to cop whatever you can, and do the best you can. I'm still practicing. As soon as this fucking call is done, I gotta play some.
Yeah, man.
Long tones on my flute. I'm playing with Rennie Lopez on Thursday, and I gotta play like a bunch of flute tunes. It's like, all right,
I just want to ask you before we can wrap up. I just want to ask you. You're involved, like El Dorado Slim, the Crusader. Are there any more dates on the books? Because I'm in Tucson, but I seriously, it'd be worth my time. I just want to come see you guys live because I'm serious.
We're playing at Jimmy's in New Hampshire with. Wait,
hold on. Jimmy's in New Hampshire.
Yeah, that's the only gig we have on the books because Scott's out with Little Feet. So
I do, yeah, totally, and Tony as well, yeah.
Yeah, and the Crusaders thing that we do, we have a few. The bummer right now is that Clark, the trombone player, he's not well right now, so that's been a big drag.
Okay, well,
and he was also doing El Dorado Slim, so. That's a bummer, but we're going to have Jenny Hill's going to fill in for him, and we was also doing this other really cool band with Clark where he was playing tuba. We were called Men of Leisure, which was happening. Really, it was really cool.
Oh, I think band. I've seen some clips of that. Yeah, dude, totally. Men of Leisure. Yeah,
Clark is ill right now, so he's got a stroke, so it's going to be a long haul for him back. So, but. I think look for more El Dorado Slim in the spring. I imagine Scott will get a run, and if you're in New York, locally, there's this. We're doing gigs with this woman, Molly Ruth. She's great. You got to come check that out.
What venues like do you want to give a shout out to? Because I do feel like there are.
Lunatico is my favorite right now.
Dude, I saw Mason and Jeff Hill and Avi Bortnick and Eric Deutsch, and they just took the roof off the place, too.
Yeah, that's the place right now. I mean, after the 55 bar is gone for locals.
Sure.
Yeah, now the 55 is gone. I'd say Lunatico is and he's open to, Richard is really great at, he's a great musician and songwriter himself, and he's got great taste, and he allows people to come in and take some chances and do some stuff, and creates a great environment for the musicians. That's my favorite place right now that I can think of right off the top of my head. And so
no, I mean when I come out we'll do
a hang. Also, I would like a shout out too.
Please.
I'm working with this. There's this. You got to check out this woman, Queen Esther. You know Queen Esther?
No.
See, you got to check her out because she's doing a thing. She calls it Black Americana. So she's not trying. She is doing. She's like she went to Gettysburg, right?
Wow.
And she started writing. She's writing songs like in folk and not blues so much as country and even some country rock kind of tunes, and sort of from a renewed black perspective. I should let her make that.
Yeah, we're words are not doing
cool
justice.
Shit.
Renewed. Listen to you, renewed.
I don't know what I'm talking.
Dude, Craig Dreyer, man, you know what? This was a power first set, and we'll just continue the ride, man. It's just great Leone and Sherrard. I mean, Little Feat. I can't imagine seeing them live in the '70s and how burning it must have been. To see those cats carry, like, I interviewed Fred Tackett before they came into town, and it's just so beautiful to see the baton being passed, but not just being passed; it's being passed to Scott, and it's being passed to those cats and Tony.
Can I just tell you one funny thing? I told Scott when we were playing gigs when he first came to New York, like I gave him some of his first gigs. He tells this story, but then I tell this story. We were in a fucking cab after this shitty little gig on the Upper East Side, right? And I was like, man, I'm going to tell you something about you right now. I said, they're going to be in guitar magazines as like the blues rock guitar star, and they're going to be like writing about what pedals you use and what amp you play and all this shit. I remember he was like 21 years old and I was like 30. I was like the old man, because
wow, dude, I love it. Right? He had just come over.
Wow. And he's in the car. He's going, oh no, man, no. And I'm like, I'm telling you, motherfucker, they're going to be writing about what pedals you use in the fucking. She's like, oh no, man. And we were cracking up because I was like, because I was right. I mean, look at him now.
Those guys just make it. I mean, the definition of genius is making something difficult look easy. It's flowing, and in that setting. And I just want to see him with Dreyer, El Dorado, Slim Crusaders, man. That early '70s like razor's edge funk, man, is insane, dude. Wilton, man, fucking Wilton Felder, Dreyer.
And then Scott spread, he spread out the tunes like he's calling some really.
I love, dude. Keep going, man.
Hamilton in there, which is really cool because the one tune is
what was that one tune?
Written by Arnie Lawrence.
Dude, listen to you, man.
Yeah.
What are you doing, man?
He used to show up. He used to play gigs. He used to hang. He used to, like, Aaron Comas from the Spin Doctors used to have gigs with Arnie would be hanging out at the Nightingales. He was much older than all of us, hanging out playing. So, like, I remember being in the section with Arnie. Me and Arnie trade solos and hanging out and talking. He was deep, and so it's cool. Like we're doing a Chico. I think it's a Chico Hamilton tune that Arnie Lawrence wrote. I think that's right.
No, is this all Sherrard's got his finger on the pulse? Because it's all this cross.
Scott's a badass, man. That motherfucker.
I mean, if you got Crusaders and then the Les McCann compared to what maybe Horace Silver and all that acid jazz, whatever they call it, that psychedelic. It's just that stuff is just. And then
it's in that vein, but we're not doing some of those more obvious tunes. We're doing a little deeper cuts.
What I'm saying is, it's just there was that period in the late '60s where there was this crossover. Rock, and Chico Hamilton started that shit too. So it's like,
that stuff is great.
It's mind melting. So Craig, man, it's such an honor. Let's keep in touch, and we'll do it again.
Thanks for having me, and appreciate the call.
All right, dude. Be cool, man.
All right, talk to you
later.